Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday. I'm sorry. No, it's Monday. It's not Wednesday. As a musician, man, we lose track of these days, I guess. I hope you had a fantastic weekend, and I'm really excited that you're here to join us today. Before we get started, I have to thank my buddies, and you know who I'm talking about, 5-Star Guitars. 5-Star Guitars based in Beaverton, Oregon. They have no sales tax. So if you're looking for guitars and you're outside the state, you're going to save a bunch of money by going to www.5starguitars.com. They've got lessons, they've got repairs, and not only do they have lessons, you can get virtual or in-person lessons from pros like Jennifer Batten. So hit up 5starguitars.com and let them know that All Access Live sent you. They'd appreciate it. I'll appreciate it. They are sponsoring and partnering with Jennifer Batten, too, who is hosting the Guitar Cloud Symposium in the second week of October. So make sure you go to guitarcloudsymposium.com. Jennifer Batten and 3 other incredible international professionals are going to be hosting a guitar symposium. So check that one out. And again, www.5starguitars.com will get you all you need for guitars. Now, before we get started, if you're watching this on any other platform, I want you to go to YouTube, open up a tab, hit the subscribe button at youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. There's a little bell there. If you click the bell, it will remind you of all the upcoming events that we have coming up. So amazing guests this week, people that are really special to me. The 80s iconic band, Wang Chung, will be joining me on Friday. And my dear friend, Dave Aberzees, who you might know from an old band called Pearl Jam. He's got a band called Zootopia that is fantastic with a new record coming out. So we'll be talking this week. Just go to youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin, and you'll get access to those events. Now that the marketing's done, it's time for some fun. I got my buddy, Paul LESINSKI, and Ned Failing in here. You guys might know these guys from the past in the band in the Portland area called The Strangers. Not just the Portland area. You guys traveled all over the place, right? You guys did touring forever.
Yeah.
And
on the road for about 5 years.
Right on. Now, that was early 90s when you guys started out, correct?
Correct.
And you guys were doing a bunch of shows with like Kerosene Dream. I remember you toured a lot with them, and some Jerry Joseph and Jack Mormons, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Actually, Kerosene Dream was the iteration after The Strangers.
Okay.
So there's a collective of musicians that were like this one big family, and there's been an interchange of all of these members in different incarnations throughout sort of our history.
That was a polite way of saying it. It's kind of incestuous, but
it is.
Portland is like that anyway, right? But I'm psyched because I've been a big fan of both of you. We've known each other for a long time. I'm a big fan of Paul's playing. His guitar playing is phenomenal, and everybody knows I'm a huge fan of Ned Failing's drumming. So
Right back at you.
I'm going to fanboy a little bit today, but we have the chat going. So if you're joining us on any of these channels, I know YouTube's the best way to do it, but throw some questions in if you've got questions. If we don't feel like answering them, it's up to these guys. So, but let's go back a little bit to the Strangers days. Are you guys both Portlanders?
I am.
Okay.
I'm not. No, I grew up in Cupertino, California.
You did. All right. Home of Apple computers, right? So
yeah, it wasn't there when I was little, but that's right. And that's actually where the story starts, because Ned and I both went to Santa Clara University, and we were both in the comms department, also in bands, competing bands, actually. And we met through, I think we both worked at the newspaper. And I just remember some guy was like, you gotta meet Ned. You gotta meet Ned. I'm like, who's this guy, Ned? So we met, but because Ned had the Portland connection, being from here, he knew the rest of the guys who eventually we all hooked up with. So
really?
As remains today, he was the connector.
As he is, man. He does this. He does well. I already see somebody in the chat asking if there's going to be a Strangers reunion. So we can talk about that in a second. As that partnership first came together, and Ned, you brought the connections of the Portland guys together, how long did you guys play around in Santa Clara together before you came up here to Portland?
Paul?
We played... So the way that went is Ned is a little younger. He was 1 year behind most of the rest of the guys. So we all graduated, moved to San Francisco, and did a trio thing. Ned went off to Europe for the summer. When he came back, we added drums, found a bass player, and that's really when it started, and that was in 90. And so we were really based in San Francisco for most of the time, started there, and then we would come up north because, again, everybody else besides me was in the band was from Portland and had connections here. So that really we had a West Coast built-in circuit almost out of the get-go. And then over the 5 years, Ned mentioned, we just expanded it. Went to Seattle, went down to San Diego and LA, and then we had a really good thing going in the Rockies. We did the Midwest a couple times. It was a little harder, a little more extended. Pre-internet, it was hard to market that and have, full houses. But we had a blast. And it started all, at Santa Clara. Actually, it started in Eugene, Oregon before Ned and I were even in the band. But that was the original guys who got started there, and then we tacked on.
I remember seeing you guys right about the time that I moved to Portland, 94. And that was, I moved out from Montana, and you guys already had a really nice draw. Man, you guys had a huge following, and a lot of people kind of regarded you as one of Portland's sort of dear, sweetheart bands. You were packing houses then. So outside the area, you talked about doing the Midwest. I know the farther west or the farther east you go, cities are farther apart too, right? So you've got to do a long haul. If you're doing Colorado dates and, going up through Montana and Wyoming and Idaho, you're driving all day if you want to get to a show. And so not only are the places hard to reach to market, but also just to get in and play the gig. So I remember some of those bands coming through Montana before I moved out. Jerry Joseph, of course, I saw several times, and another Portland band, Crazy Eights, I would see coming through College Town. And it fascinated me that so much musicality would come out from this area. So it's one of the reasons I came out here, because I fell in love with the music. But did you find that even if you played some sparse shows out there, did some of those people follow you as you did like these touring circuits? Did you kind of build an audience outside that now finds you in the day of the internet?
I would say there's some for sure. Yeah, I mean, we definitely, Seattle, we did really well in Colorado too. That was another big spot for us. And yeah, we get people that come out of the woodwork. There's a group page, fans of Kerosene Dream, The Strangers, The Renegade Saints, 9 Days Wonder, which is all this kind of this incestuous group of players that have all sort of commingled. And so a lot of people find us there, and there's a lot of nostalgia there that's posted on the page. And The Strangers actually just recently posted a Bandcamp page, which sort of has old bootlegs and all the old albums and everything. So that's just starting to get going as well.
I was wondering if there was some tape trading going on, from the fans. So there's what is do you remember the URL for that page? Because we should point people there.
Yeah. Paul, do you remember what it is?
No, I don't. I think it's probably Bandcamp / The Strangers, but I think if you just searched The Strangers in Bandcamp, it should show up.
I'm going to put it here just in case.
I guess we could figure it out while we're on and it.
I'm going to put that there for now, and then if people do some searching, they can find this here. There's a little caption. But it's interesting that in that genre too. I mean, I say that genre. The bands kind of evolved a little bit over time. They seemed like there was a little bit more of an earthy, dead vibe to some of the bands, and so there was a jam kind of feel to it, but there was so much more, I think, structure. You guys had some funk elements in the band, and the playing was always like top notch. So I'm not sure this person's name here in the chat, but Sachi Sierra says they were such an awesome band.
Sachi is an old fan from way back.
Really? Okay, and they're the one that's asking for the Strangers reunion. So obviously you guys still talk. Are all the members still in this area, in the Portland area?
Henry is back east, the bass player.
Okay.
Bart is here in Portland. Paul's here in Portland, and Alan is down in the Bay Area. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we kind of go in these waves where we'll all connect. Paul has been this amazing archivist where he's sort of chronicled all of our tours and has compiled all of our videos, which there are hours and hours and hours from spanning about 5 or 6 years, and has cataloged everything, organized everything, and given us all copies, so we all have it on hard drives, and then has just started to seed out sort of the best of the best.
That's
Yeah, and actually, Alan, that's the Bandcamp site, and I'll keep looking. I didn't find it, but he's the one that's curating. Like I did all the transfer to digital, and he's kind of curating it. He's found like the best gigs, and he's starting to post them up. And just to your point, about the fan base and whatnot, we made lifelong friends doing all that stuff. Sashi's certainly one of them, but we've got friends in a lot of different towns that, I'm Facebook friends. We all are Facebook friends with, and we reminisce, and there's all sorts of like fun stuff going on. It was quite the, I think because I am the official archivist, I guess, I did add it all up at one point or another. We did 17 states plus Canada, and I think we played in a little over 900 shows. So very, very hardworking, but a lot of fun. And going through those videos was actually pretty hilarious because I can't believe that we did what we did. I was looking, there were certain stretches where we played like 14 days in a row with no break. And we would be driving like 200 or 300 miles after the show. So I joke when I play with the guys now that I play with, like we'll finish the show, we're all exhausted. It's like, 11:45 at night, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, guys, let's get in the van and drive 300 miles. They're like, but
well, those guys have all done it too.
Yeah, that's what we did. It was awesome.
We've got our buddy Jason Fellman chiming in too. He says, "What up, fellas?
Hey, Jason.
Nice to see you here, buddy." Thinking about the way that you've archived all these shows and these people have followed you. Now, you each have done an evolution of new bands since then. You're playing together for 22 years together in Floydian Slips, which is unbelievable. I was looking at old clips of the band. It's amazing to me at the production that you guys have done, like to try and copy the visual production that Pink Floyd would have and really kept the integrity of the background singers and the whole theatrical part of Pink Floyd. So I was going to ask those old fans and friends of The Strangers and Kerosene Dream and all these prior bands, did they kind of follow along and just follow from one band to the next? And now they're a fan of Floydian as well?
I would say there's some crossover, yes, but the Floydian Slips was sort of its own discrete unit. It started off as its own thing in Eugene, and I mean, it just grew and grew and grew. So I think that people that have who we're friends with, who have seen us play, discovered like, oh, okay, Paul's in this band, Ned's in this band, so, Al Trivio's in this band.
It's got to be good.
Yeah, and so it's brought those people in. But I would say that the Slips sort of started of its own volition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. I could tell you that origin story very briefly. I found it. It's The Stranger's Vault.
Oh yeah.
.bandcamp.
Okay.
So the Stranger's Vault. You'll find all the albums there and a growing list of the best live stuff.
Okay, fantastic. I'll put that up here, and that way people can find it. You said the origin too. I was going to ask you about the Floydian Slips. I had forgotten too that our friend Nicole Campbell has also been part of that. Has she been there from the beginning as well?
No, she came in like 2007. Is that right, Paul? Paul knows all the dates. That's why I always.
I'm not as clear on the Slips dates.
That's all right.
That sounds right. 2007. Yeah, she's been in like definitely between somewhere around 15 years. What happened was I was not in The Strangers anymore. I left. I was tired of eating corn chip sandwiches in the back of the van, and left the rest of them to muddle on, which they did, and put out an amazing album and kept going. But I was like, what am I going to do, right? So I was working. I was in Eugene, Oregon, and I had a little bit of a business with Brendan Relaford, who was The Strangers' manager.
Right.
Who was just starting to learn how to play bass and was booking a place in Eugene called the Wild Duck. And it held about 400 people. And, he was like, hey, Paul, we should put a project together. And I just thought, how about we try to learn the Dark Side of the Moon? Because I'd actually tried to do it in high school with some buddies, not well, but realized that those songs are not, you're not playing Siberian Khatru off of a Yes album. I mean, they're not hard songs, really. It's hard to get it right, but they're not complicated. So we put together Al and a bunch of other guys, and we did The Dark Side of the Moon, and that was the beginning of it. We did it in '96. It went really well, so we decided to do it again. And honestly, that's how it's gone for the last 23 years, which is that we're like, should we do another one? Oh, we got an offer. Oh, should we do The Wall? Should we, and honestly, it's a year-to-year thing. It's a project that's just grown into its own entity, and it's really fun. And as you noted, we do try to preserve kind of the integrity of the music, but what we're not doing and have never done is try to be like, oh, you're the Roger Waters guy, you're the David Gilmour guy. It's not that. We just play the music. Yeah, we have the light show, the lasers. We try to do an awesome show, but we're not real worried about like looking like Pink Floyd.
Sure.
We just want to sound as much like it as we can and do the music justice.
It's interesting you point that out. I know that you're obviously a David Gilmour fan, right? You can really hear Gilmour in your playing, and so while you might not be putting on the costumes and trying to act those parts, I really do hear like if you close your eyes, you really get the Pink Floyd experience, which is kind of what it's all about, right? Jason, if in the chat knows, we're several of us are part of a tribute scene here in the area in Portland. And there's, if people are not familiar with that sort of theatric side of it being kind of a Broadway experience, right, where you're really trying to present a show and like an off-Broadway show, so you're taking an original project and, bringing that around to a touring sort of environment. If you really bring integrity to that, then you're trying to document as much of the feel and the sound. When you guys are going out touring, I'm thinking because you mentioned getting an offer for the Slips, to bring in that kind of show on tour, I would imagine you've got to have semi-trucks full of stuff, right? Because you've got so many lights. There's production stuff. So how can you take that thing on the road without it really costing money? What's that?
We don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
We don't. And that's the whole thing is like the reason that we've been doing this so long, and Ned, I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate this. I'll just make one point and I know you have things to say about it too, I'm sure. We tried, we get offers to play clubs, we get offers to play certain things, and we don't do them because we want to bring the big show. And the only way we can really do the big show and not have to pay or, out of our own pockets through the big show is to really just do them in Eugene and Portland.
Okay.
We have done Seattle. We've done some other regions. We've talked about Bend, and I honestly think we could play other towns if we did it right, and looked at it a little differently in terms of keeping our expenses down. But it's an expensive show because we do it the way we do it.
Sure.
And we really therefore we only really play like 2 to maybe 4 or 5 times a year, and some years once. And we just want to do big shows, and that keeps it fun and fresh and not grindy.
Sure,
that's the word.
Yeah, no,
what am I missing there?
Well, I can bring Ned in here for something because you talked about the venues you're doing them in. I would imagine a great Portland venue that has worked well for the Slips has been the Revolution Hall, which
yeah, it's definitely that's just the right home for the Floydian Slips. We were at the Aladdin, which is great. But we would end up doing, we sold that out very quickly. We would do multiple nights there. And so we could probably do 2 nights at Revolution Hall now. But it's just the size of the stage, the house lights that they have there, the sound system, everything is so great. And we, of course, augment everything that's brought in.
Of course.
It's a great venue, and I'm biased because I work there too.
Yeah, no, it really is a great venue. It's the best thing that's come to Portland in a long time. And we talked just prior to going live about the way that venues have been affected. So obviously, COVID has affected venues around the world. Jason Fellman and I talked a little bit about ways that venues could weather this storm, whether it be through streaming opportunities or something like that, and looking at down the road how to be able to bring audiences back in a safe way. You have been with Revolution Hall from the beginning, right? So,
yeah.
And I guess there's been some state assistance with the pandemic. Is that correct for venues?
There has been, yeah. There's been some state. We're working on federal stuff right now. There's been some city, some state, and we're working on federal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without putting the cart before the horse, have you guys as a venue figured out ways that you might be able to do sort of cost-effective streaming events to be able to bring people back into the fold and help sustain the venue during this downtime?
Each venue is different, so each one has its own sort of overhead and cost structure. To get Revolution Hall up and going, it's pretty much all in. You pretty much have to be at full capacity in order for it to work. That's not to say that we aren't thinking outside of the box and trying to be creative about what else we can do. But really, we are hoping to just hold on until we can come back to our normal capacity again. But the goalposts for that keep moving. So it is a big question mark for everybody. And each venue is different. Some venues can accommodate sort of half capacity or staggering people. There's been a whole bunch of creative solutions to putting on shows. I don't think anybody's sort of had the silver bullet yet,
right.
but everyone's trying. Yeah.
Anywhere, really. You talked about doing really well in Colorado, and I just talked to some friends today about the way that Red Rocks has been trying to do this, where they bring in a smaller venue or a smaller audience. And you said really Revolution Hall has to be at full capacity. I'm wondering if maybe the Slips might have recorded something in the past on video that might be something that you could launch as a streaming revenue for you guys. That might have been from the Revolution Hall. Is there anything that you guys recorded from there? Yeah,
we definitely have. Paul, again, he's recorded everything, and there's been other sources of that have recorded as well. So that is a possibility. We're very picky about our audio and our visuals, so we want it, of course, to sound amazing.
I'm sure
that's the thing, is it has to pass muster with the band as to the fidelity and the visuals.
Yeah, you don't. I guess in the old historic times, right? Bands that would have tapes traded from personal audio recorders in their pocket. You don't want that out there. But just maybe to wrap on the venue, is there a way that people can support Revolution Hall right now? Do you have merchandise or anything that people can do to help sustain something while we're waiting for this thing to wrap?
Absolutely. In fact, if you go to the revolutionhall.com, you can see there's some different ways. There is merchandise to support us, and it would be greatly appreciated. A lot of it is advocacy. There is a national group called NIVA, N-I-V-A, which is, and they have this hashtag Save Our Stages,
right?
That you might see that people are using. And that's the big national effort that we're trying to get federal funding now to kind of help us carry into the new year. So just if people can support that advocacy, get the word out. From time to time, we ask people to reach out to their legislators to say, hey, this is something that I care deeply about. So those are really the ways that people can support. But yes, going to revolutionhall.com or any venue,
sure.
Each one has its own sort of mechanism for support, and it would be greatly appreciated.
Not only appreciated, we need this. As a fellow musician, we need the venues to come back first, because if there are no venues, then we're not playing, right? So yeah. I know that when we archive this as well, it'll be at accesskevin.com. I'll have a link to all of those resources. So if you're watching this, make sure you go to that archive, and we'll have all those links there that you can help support, including a way for us to find these archives of the Slips and the older renditions of the band. So I want to maybe touch base back. We jump back prior to the Slips. We had Strangers. You had the evolution of, you said, Kerosene Dream. You had 9 Days Wonder, Renegade Saints, of course, which again I saw a lot back with the prior days. Ned, you became so sort of ubiquitous. You were on everybody's radar. Everybody wanted to have you in their band. I know that you'd go out any night of the week in Portland, and you're pretty much rest assured that you're going to see Ned behind the drum kit somewhere. So
I called him the Phil Collins of Portland.
Right?
Get him in the Concord in between gigs, man. Get him there. He'll do it.
Man. I was wondering if you had your own or they could even get big, but kind of like Kenny was able to flat.
Hey, Kevin, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Yeah, Kev, I think you're frozen. I thought it was me. Oh, the beautiful internet. Ned, I'll just interview you. So, Ned, what brand of disposable razor do you prefer?
I'm a Gillette man.
Not Bic. Okay, okay. Fair enough.
It's a good
Um,
look that he froze with.
that is, actually, that's not bad. Sometimes you freeze and you're like, just like, I think Kevin's having a stroke there. So anyway, Ned, what's going on, man? You've been playing?
Been playing, yes. Paul, you had an amazing live stream yourself just recently, um, which was fantastic.
Well, when Kevin was talking about the slips in Rev Hall, I was thinking about the fact that like those PDX Couch Tour and Northwest Talent Spotlight, they've kind of shown that, I mean, Jason from doing our slips gigs, the lights, he does the lights for the PDX Couch Tour. And, I mean, I suppose we could do some kind of web concert, make it look awesome and charge people. And that could go to Rev Hall, but I don't know. Obviously, there's so many nuances to that and whatever.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
it
think
was
that,
it was really cool.
oh, thanks. It was fun. I mean, Kevin's show and those things are showing that people are getting creative in this crazy time. It's not necessarily making anybody any money, but it's definitely getting people to be able to play and connect with the audiences. And I'll tell you what, like for me, doing those web shows gave me a really good excuse to socially distance with the other guys in the band. The other two guys, we've been working on recording, so we hadn't played in a while, and it's been a lot of fun just getting the jams out, kicking the jams out, and then going and doing those. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
I got to see our buddy Shipe, John Shipe, over at the Dublin. He has that new double. I love that John has two double albums. His second double album, The Beast Is Back, which I was just listening to this morning, he came to the Dublin and played, and Mike Walker showed up and did a little keys.
About that.
For those of you out in listener land, definitely John Shipe's new album is worth getting. It's really good, actually. It's really good.
Right. And John Shipe is part of that whole incestuous group of players that I was referring to earlier. He was with the Renegade Saints, and then post Renegade Saints, John and I played in a band together very briefly called Red Lemon.
With Fred, right? Fred Van Vactor?
And Fred Van Vactor was on bass. And so, yes, just another cross-pollination.
Well, I remember, I mean, probably this is a pre-Slips thing, but, that Eugene living, Brendan and I think I don't think it was a standing gig, but I would do Good Times acoustic. And when you guys rolled back in, or the Saints or anybody else, we would have, somebody come up and guest, and, just again, it was a super collaborative, fun time. And I think out of that's when Brendan really first started playing. And out of that, we had the Slips idea. So, and I know we talked about this previously, Ned, texting, but for listeners out there, Jerry Joseph's new album is ridiculously good.
It's very, very good. Yeah. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, he's of course always been amazing. And, this album, I think, is even just another level for him.
Well, I'm excited that it looks like he's finally starting to get his due, and I mean, he's always been amazing and deserving of it, but I think his work with the guy for the bass player from Widespread Panic helped, but then this Drive-By Truckers Association just put them like, I mean, put it this way: you're going to open the email, right? If you're like produced by whatever, and then just listen to music. And it's just like doesn't matter who produced. It's amazing. Like
Yeah, it
it's
does.
classic Jerry, and it's great stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Another plug for,
We're gonna do the plugs. So,
yeah.
I don't know, Kevin. I don't know when he's coming back, but we'll keep doing the plugs, and he'll decide if he wants to use them or not.
So, Paul, what is the name of your project? Speaking
My
of plugs.
project?
Well,
I
what's
mean,
your band?
well, because I can't think of anything better, we call it the Paul LESINSKI Band, which technically I actually don't like, but we haven't, I don't know. I haven't spent enough time in the back of the van with four other guys coming up with band names. So, maybe we'll call ourselves Neon Fruit Supermarket next week. Um, but yeah, put out a new CD in July. Thanks for the prompt. And I was trying to get this thing out this year before the election because it's super timely lyrically. And the shutdown just kind of freed up a lot of time to be able to actually get it done. So it got done, and that's on all the usual suspects plus Bandcamp. So
Cool.
yeah,
Right on. Well, I'll make a plug for Mexican Gunfight, which is a band that I am in with Mike Walker, Al Tribio, and Dave Coy. The three of them were all in the Renegade Saints together, and two of them were in 9 Days Wonder before that. And so it's again a part of a continuum, a family of bands, and a group of players that have all played together since the 90s. And Mexican Gunfight has an album out. We play a lot live. We're working on a brand new album right now. And that's one of the fun things we've been doing during COVID is exchanging files and doing some tracking together, getting some demos together. And so there's a batch of new songs right now that is really exciting for us.
I was wondering about that. You guys have been very under the radar, and I suspected something like that was happening, and I was hoping it was. I've got a friend who is a singer-songwriter, and I said, they had a different take on it. It's like there's going to be so much new music out off of COVID and the pandemic, and I don't really want to be lumped in with that whole like vibe, which I understand if it was all vibey, but I think that I'm taking the opposite. I'm excited for all the new music that'll come out because of this. I mean, obviously the obvious subtext to all this is that it sucks, and I hope that everybody is staying healthy, and I'm sure we all do, and we're all trying to be safe. But if there is a silver lining, we are able to, have a little bit more time to be creative and fly those files back and forth and do the odd gig.
Yeah, and I think that along those lines too, everyone has been learning about recording technology and transferring files and getting the best sounds that they can. So I think that there will be a renaissance of home recording, perhaps, that will come out of this because people have had to dive so deep into it just to survive and remain creative and pass files around and create albums. And so it's hopefully that is a silver lining that we'll get a lot of great music that comes out of this.
And then, man, I'll tell you what, whenever we're allowed to play again, I will just speak from experience, like the couple of gigs that I did with Dave and Mike, one of them was at the Star Theater and the other one was in a studio, like a TV studio sort of situation. And so we could play loud, we could play loud, lights, monitors, the whole deal, right? And there were only like two other people in the place with masks on, so we're being safe about it, or I wouldn't do it. But God, that's cathartic as hell, just to be able to do that, and then you just kind of pretend like there's 4,000 people there.
Yep. Well, I'll make one other plug too. Is that every Tuesday at 7:00, I play with another band called the Low Bar Corral. Low Bar Corral was a group that got together every week at Revolution Hall, basically to the premise of the band is that we are the band and the audience is the lead singer. And so Ben, who is the leader of this project, he teaches everybody the vocal parts, the harmonies, and we once we learn all that stuff, we'll do a couple renditions, we'll record it, and then we'll move on to the next song. But it's a great collective experience. Now, obviously, we can't do that in COVID times now. So the band and Ben have just, we get together as a band and we'll play 7 or 8 songs starting at 7 o'clock. And we're playing out of the Alberta Street Pub right now. And we're still trying to carry on that sing at home kind of things. Very, very eclectic group of songs. We cover a huge gamut of styles. So I've been able to play with musicians on a weekly basis, which has been really, really amazing. And we're all socially distant and everything, but it's great nothing beats playing live.
Yep. No, I hear you, man.
Yeah.
So regarding the Slips, we're always so one-off, but the one thing that you could pretty much set a clock to is the next waltz. And I'm imagining that COVID is going to knock that out from a live thing, but have you guys had any sort of discussion? And for those who don't know what that is, Ned's been involved. Is it 10 years now? It's a collective that plays the band, The Last Waltz, end to end with a bunch of amazing players, although I've never been invited to play, whatever. But are you guys thinking about doing like a virtual version of that or something along those lines?
So I think all of the musicians right now, because normally it's in November, The Last Waltz, when it took place Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. So normally we try and do it the day after Thanksgiving, and it's usually a multi-night event. And there he is.
I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you. So in the midst of the pandemic, we also had the fire the catastrophe. So my neighborhood has not yet fully been restored for internet access. So
oh my gosh,
I'm in my car at a Wi-Fi spot up the street. I am so grateful that you're still here. Thank goodness.
Well, I texted you. We've been interviewing each other, so
I love it.
That, hopefully, you'll get something good out of that. That's awesome. You're in your car. This is what I'm talking about. Like, yes, it's. Let's forget the subtext of why we have to be so creative, but this is just like it adds an interesting ripple to our lives, doesn't it?
It's, if you can't make it through this, this amount, I'm sure that there's got to be some kind of hellacious hurricane or tornado or something whipping through here too that's going to happen while I'm
an asteroid. Well, I had just asked Ned, and I think you would have asked this too eventually. One of the musical cohorts that he's in is the Next Waltz, which is the thing they do every November. Right. So I was asking him, obviously that won't happen live, but I was just asking if there's some plan to maybe do that virtually or something.
TBD. All the musicians are talking. I think everyone was sort of waiting just to see what happened in November. Like, can people get together? So it's TBD. I'm not sure if that will happen this year, and it would be sad if it didn't in some way, because it's been over a decade of shows, and it would be a bummer to break the streak, but 2020, come on.
Well, maybe what you should do, Ned, is like, I know there's a lot of musicians involved in that thing, but maybe pick like a handful and just do like 2 or 3 videos or something and just put them out on Thanksgiving, like pick your guys' favorite songs, and those virtual videos with the 4 or 5 screens, like those are super fun too, I think. I've always enjoyed, Ned, way back to watching The Who do Eminence Front, like our favorite videos are when you can see the band play. And so maybe like put a couple of those out just for fun. Here, I'm signing you up for more stuff. I don't have to do anything.
Well,
put it on your list.
Yeah, it's I'm highly dedicated to all of those projects, and we'll see what happens. I'm not sure.
Right on.
Yeah.
Back to you, Kevin. Back to you.
I can't even tell you how much I appreciate Paul taking over the helm here at All Access Live. I may have a new co-host. Not knowing what I missed and what you guys covered, I think it'd be great to talk a little bit about, everybody's had to overcome some kinds of adversity, right? So, Ned, we talked a little bit about the venue, what you guys are doing as part of a coalition in terms of keeping the venues sustained and getting back together again. Jason Fellman has been very vocal in the community about finding ways to be able to keep people motivated to support music. Paul, you just took part in Bobby Palada's Northwest Talent Spotlight. Watched the show. I thought it was fantastic. Did you talk a little bit about that show in the chat when I was gone here?
A little bit, yeah. Ned had mentioned it. You know, I just was simply stating that, like, again, it's just indicative of the creativity. You know, it's not making people wads and wads of money, but like this show that you're doing is a case in point example of like thinking way outside of the box and creating something that wouldn't have happened. And the thing that I liked about like Brian Strauss's approach with PDX Couch is that we were playing in front of a giant screen that was a Zoom screen. And on the side was all the tiles of people who joined on Zoom. And then he would put like individuals in front of us. So it was kind of like playing to an audience. And the thing I really loved about it, and same with Northwest Talent, but we weren't seeing it. We were being told like, oh, there's these comments by the host, is that we were able to play live in front of people who would not see us, right, because of geography. So like Sashi, right? So she saw both of those shows, right? And people in the Bay Area, people anywhere, right? And that's a new kind of model. So wouldn't it be interesting when we are able to bring live music back that piece of it actually stays? Because previous, I would just, you know, if I wanted to do that, I would have to stick my phone on a little stand, do Facebook Live and hope the Wi-Fi didn't crap out. But
Right.
like these are like really, really well done production situations, and I think that would be interesting to add on to the live experience. So it's been fun for us to do it.
I really think you're right, that I do believe that the future sort of holds some of this, that even when venues open back up again, I think people are really becoming accustomed to the safety of being in their own home. I mean, as we know, for a while, people stopped going out as much, right? Because they sat at home and watched Netflix anyway. So it was interesting and find creative ways to be able to draw people off their couches, get back out in the venues. Now, if people are getting used to and accustomed to being on their couch, we have to find ways to be able to make the experience through a virtual or a stream something that's more interesting than something else on Netflix, right? So, you know, my whole show came as an accident. It really was an opportunity for me to partner with my friends and bandmates and talk about what we would be doing at this point last year. You know, I've talked to a lot of musicians that have found creative ways in order to make a living, sell some music, teach lessons. Of course, I talked at the onset about 5 Star Guitar sponsoring the show. They do a lot of virtual lessons. Jennifer Batten has a whole slew of new students that come through the guitar store that never would have really known that Jennifer was available for lessons. And so finding different ways and avenues. Audix Microphones, based here in Portland, has a great production facility, and they're going to start doing some streaming events as well. We talked about partnering together, so I would go in and do a little bit of an interview as we're doing 10, 15 minutes, and then have a live performance. And so they really want to get into that opportunity where people are familiar with them being a local band, brand, locally sourced brand that are making products here, but also trying to bring the community into it. And so the community involvement, if you can't go out and see a live show in your neighborhood, this is almost the next best thing, because you extend the audience outside your area. A lot of people that come in through Twitch on this show had never heard anything about a lot of the guests that I have on, but they just happened across it. And people that are really involved in the community, I see Mike Klaus commenting a lot here. And Mike is one of those guys as a community member who's so involved. He, you know, as much as you might see Ned behind the drum kit at a show, you'd see Mike out supporting these shows too. It's amazing that
Mike's everywhere. Yeah.
And so supportive, right? So we're lucky, we're blessed to have people like that. You know, Paul, the really cool thing that I liked about your show the other night was while there wasn't an opportunity to do too much Q&A, you really got through a lot of music. You really got to showcase the bands well. It was well shot with a bunch of different cameras. Our buddy Dave Kendall on drums. I loved getting to see him singing so much with you too. And when you've got these kind of pairings, I could imagine having a live simulcast of maybe an old Strangers video that you might have from the archives that you guys approve, a Floydian Slips, segment, and then a Paul LESINSKI, solo band. in one night where all those fans of Paul LESINSKI might be able to come in and pay per view, for a show. Have you guys done any pay per view shows at this point yet?
No. I mean, both of those are donation/tip kind of situation. And again, this is not something I do for a living, nor Mike or Dave. So we just made sure that the producers got all that and did with it whatever they needed to. I mean, I gotta be honest, I don't think anybody would pay maybe I'd get a handful of people who pay something, but that's not what I'm in it for. I do want to support the people doing it though. So I encourage people to pay, but I'm not going to make them to pay to get in the virtual door.
You because you said that you would like to support people that way. The gal that I talked to this morning from Boulder said that these shows that were happening at Red Rocks, there was a local artist that had done some pay-per-view event where it was $8 for a night of 2.5 hours of music. They had 2,000 subscribers, 2,000 people sign up. So that person, while not internationally known or even nationally known, had drawn a little bit of an interest from opening for a Big Head Todd show. And so Big Head Todd played Red Rocks. They had a limited capacity venue, but that band just got enough of visibility that they were able to draw a large audience on a pay-per-view, a weekly thing. So they're doing weekly events every Saturday night, $8 a pop. Anybody...
My brother's in a band called Billy Strings right now, and they just did the Red Rocks thing last week.
Really? Okay, yep. Yes. So it's working. We're looking at these opportunities for people to be able to get out there. Sashi mentioned, well, it was great. There's nothing like a live show, and we all know that. And on stage and off, as performers on stage, it's not the same playing on a stage with a bunch of cameras in your face without having the audience back there. But Paul, I see you engaging quite a bit with people on social media. Ned, are you able to stay in touch with people quite a bit? The connections of people that have followed you for a while?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And there are all of these different groups and things like that. And you can kind of go to those different areas and find these communities of people. And I'm very, very fortunate and feel very, very thankful to have so many friends and people who come out and support live music. And so it's great. There are so many of them out there.
And I mean, let's be honest, like when Facebook came out before it was evil, it really helped us all connect with people that we forgot to remember in the first place.
You bet.
So that was cool. And now I kind of feel like what's happening this year is that musically that's starting to happen too, right? Like people who wouldn't have had the time, or just the example I was just talking about, being able to play. Look, the PDX Couch Tour show, I look at the Zoom thing, and my guitar teacher from Palo Alto, California is up on that thing. Of course, I had texted him the link.
Right.
Didn't expect him to attend. I'm just like, oh my God, like that just made the whole night for me right out of the gate. I'm like, I don't care what happens. Like for him to be watching and everybody else that joined, it was amazing. It was so cool. And again, like if I brought the show down to the Bay Area, I know Sashi would be there. We'll keep talking about Sashi, but I don't know that my guitar teacher, Jeff Buens, would make it. But here he is on this virtual thing. And so I think that like there are these opportunities to bring musicians together and musicians to fans together, like that Boulder example, I assume you could attend from anywhere.
Right.
And that's pretty killer. I don't have to go to Boulder to see my favorite band.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while it would have been great to see that band live for $8, it's a pretty nice investment, right? It's cheaper than going out to a movie. And, again, talking about Jason Fellman, Jason, I know, was real pivotal in getting these community events in Portland where a venue would pick up certain figureheads from different areas. So Ned, maybe you having representation for a venue, and they might have a magazine or local publication involved, in ways to get involved, either as a band to get you, keep your social media audience engaged. So I like that there was an effort to help promote the positive part of social media long before the pandemic, and that is, it's a great thing to think about. Paul, you mentioned, before Facebook was evil. I think there are always inherent parts, in social media becoming divisive, and people can really just feed on that stuff and have it be toxic. But there is a real positive, I say with a prominent flag going behind me here in my car. Nice. Anyway, there are ways that you can use social media, certainly for your benefit. I think, it's been great, I would bet, to communicate your message, Ned, for the venues. Paul, had it not been for social media, opportunities to see the Paul LESINSKI solo band the other night in a really great, live, safe environment wouldn't have been there. Ned, you were the founder and CEO for a huge festival here, Pickathon, right? So I know that like big gatherings like that, where people are kind of shoulder to shoulder, it's going to be a little while before we can do something like that safely. But I know that that was all about community. I think it was so socially media driven, right? Where the word of mouth, because I didn't see a lot of advertising into that. It seemed like it was all word of mouth that brought people out to those kinds of that.
It was word of mouth. We ended up filming all of the performances and a lot of special sessions and things. That was ultimately our driver. But yes, the channel was social media, was the way that it got out there. And one of the ways that we as a festival, which I'm now retired from, we would keep our costs low because we would dump our marketing revenue into filming and things and getting out the performances, as opposed to buying, full page ads, much to the chagrin of a lot of our local newspapers. So.
Right. Well, you got to do what works, right? And it obviously did. I think it was a huge success when a lot of times festivals would come and go. Somebody might invest a lot and just lose their tail. And it was in the heart of that was happening and very successful in the midst of the Fire Festival, sort of like shenanigans that we've all heard about on Netflix. And
I couldn't really watch any of that because it hit a little bit too close to home.
Sure.
As that whole story unfolded, just to digress for 2 seconds, you realized all the things that they were doing wrong as things. And it was, I ended up I couldn't do it. It just gave me, it gave me too much, angst and tension to be able to sit through it.
Yeah. No, not being a festival organizer, but being privy to a lot of those, it was a tough stomach, to watch too. But
it was watching a train wreck.
Yeah, well, which is like a lot of TV anyway. But it should have been a made-for-TV movie and not a real story. But I want to say, I'd love to have a segment, because a lot of the guests that I've had on, I've talked about sort of dream lineups. So I don't know if you guys are into sports at all, but I think about like dream teams, and a lot of guests have asked about their perfect band, assembling their perfect band or their dream lineup. So you guys have done festivals, you've done shows, you've been in a million different bands. So I want you to think about your dream lineup for a band, living or dead. They don't have, and probably somebody that you haven't played with before. Let's start with you, Ned. I want you to come up with you got one show at I want dream lineup and dream venue. And while you think about it for a second, I'm going to give you a couple seconds.
Okay.
I want to tell you, Paul. Yeah, growing up in Cupertino, one of my favorite venues ever to play is just in the hillside above Cupertino there, man, at Mountain Winery in Saratoga there, man. I did that one every year the last 4 or 5 years, and it's one of the most stunning views I've ever seen in my life. I can't wait to get back there. And
right on.
If you've done that one, you may know. Did you know that? If you've been there, I'm sure.
I've seen shows there. I think I saw Chet Atkins there, and then somebody else. It's a beautiful venue. Never played it.
Did the owl come down at the shows you were at?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
There's an owl that lives in.
I was on several heavy medications.
Oh yeah, right.
No.
You might have thought you
medicine.
You might have thought you saw the owl and didn't even know. But all right, so I gave Ned a couple minutes to think about it. All right, so Ned, you first.
Yep. So keyboards, this guy named Corey Henry. He's an amazing artist. If you don't know Corey Henry, go check him out. He's like the new Stevie Wonder Part 2. Wow. I'm blanking his name, but the bass player from that band Wolfpack, amazing bass player. I'm blanking his name. He would be on bass. It's either him or John Entwistle. I can't from the either way. And then I'd probably, because of the Floydian Slips, I would probably have Gilmore on guitar.
Okay.
There. Yeah, and vocalist. God, that's just, I didn't get that far.
Yeah, well,
it would be Paul maybe.
No, Ronnie James Dio. You know it. Ronnie James Dio, man. Bring him back.
Man, oh, you know what? I did hear somebody that just there was like an all-star lineup on a Zoom. I think Nuno Betancourt might have done it, or one of these guys that did a all-star jam. But the kid that was singing sounded exactly like Ronnie James Dio, but he was like 21. Yeah. Blew my mind. Yeah. So anyway, whoever is in the chat here says Chet Atkins mentioned, by the way, no big deal. Yeah. that's great. And where was the venue, Ned? Dream venue.
Dream venue. I mean, you'd have to go big. You'd have to do something like Wembley or something.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Come on, man.
Well, you could just get on the Concorde like with Phil Collins and go to Wembley.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. How about you, Paul? Do we have a venue first or a band first?
I don't know, man. I overthink questions like this. I guarantee the second we're done, I'll be like, oh, I got it. So I'm just going to cheap out and just say I would want to just join a band that already existed and replace somebody in it. And I would love for like a half an hour to play with all the original, the Mark IV version of Deep Purple, or Mark II, whoever it is, John Lord, Ian Pace, Roger Glover, and Ian Gillan, and just not that I could play like Ritchie Blackmore, I can't, but just to be like part of that engine would be like probably pretty life changing.
Absolutely, and you got to pick a special venue. If it's Deep Purple, then you've got to have a venue.
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. I've actually never been to Red Rocks, so I'll just say Red Rocks. Because it looks amazing, and I bet if I put myself in that situation with that band, that venue's just, why not?
Yeah.
None of it's going to happen, so I might as well dream big.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, it can't happen now with some of the members missing, but, but, when you actually wake up from that wonderful wet dream, you'll think, oh, it really happened. Red Rocks is atop my bucket list for sure, man. We played Fiddler's Green the last couple of years on tour, and the promoter was working on Red Rocks. I saw one of my lifelong favorite shows there, and you may laugh, but I drove from Montana to see Scorpions there the day after graduating high school. So Scorpions and Mr. Big and Great White at Red Rocks, it was pretty special. So yeah,
all right. So you've had time to probably think about it, Kevin. What's your band?
My favorite singer alive, Miles Kennedy. Mayfield 4 was my favorite band. So if I could, usurp the drum chair from Zia Udine, play drums with Mayfield 4, that'd be the gig. Played the Greek the last couple of years, and it was a bucket list for me. And so Hollywood Bowl is the only other LA venue I'm dying to play. Red Rocks is the number one place for me. I got to play the venue. So it'd be tough for me to play musicians too, because I really feel like I've been blessed to play with some of my favorite musicians on the planet. Yeah. And I had a ton of pinch me moments, man. I've had ridiculous gigs where I've been asked to play, like, play with Missing Persons. I have to like cover Terry Bozzio parts. That doesn't work for me. But So whoever, what we found in chat says they saw Deep Purple at Red Rocks 2002. So
there you go.
I'm not sure who that is, but whoever you are, then getting to see.
I wasn't there. I wasn't playing with them. I'll tell you that.
You know what? You could tell people you were people might not know, but
yeah,
man,
I look just like Ritchie Blackmore. I know.
Yeah, but with all your fingers. Yeah. You guys, it is a blessing to have you here. I can't even tell you, man. This is not fair, Ned. I haven't seen you in probably a year now. Every time I see you, you look 10 years younger. This is like, look what the pandemic did to Ned. That's not fair. But man, I mean, you guys really have, you've kept people entertained. You've like Paul LESINSKI, man. It was so fun to watch your show the other night. I can't wait to see what more happens for you. Is there a plan to put out a record with this new stuff?
Well, the new stuff's out. So I had a CD come out, in July, and the CD's called What You Hold Near. And we were talking about this when you were frozen. And by the way, your picture looked okay frozen. You didn't look too heinous. You know how that is. Sometimes it's like, ugh. But anyway, and so, you can find that at all the usual Spotify, Apple Music places, and Bandcamp.
Right here?
Just search for my name, but the album's called What You Hold Near.
Okay.
So that came out in July. And that's why I'm doing these shows. It's kind of like the best way I can promote it is really doing these things and whatnot. And and then in terms of the next thing, we have another PDX Couch tour on the 29th of October. And we're definitely going to do Northwest Talent Spotlight again, probably in December. And then these things are turning out so well that I think I might try to put together something, which would probably I just put up on Bandcamp, but kind of a live album of the solo stuff, because I think hopefully after that many gigs, there'll be enough. This last show, like half of it, I felt so good. The band felt good. It was just, we were having so much fun. It sounded so good. It was like, you know how it goes, guys, both of you. Like a song goes by and you're like, okay, that might be like the quintessential error-free version of that song.
Yeah. And you got it on tape.
Yeah. And so there were a few of those, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting these on video. So it just kind of fed on itself. And so I'll probably try to do that too. And then there's another whole album that needs to be finished, but like Dave got on a roll and put drums down on like 23 songs last year, and I'm just finishing them off in groups. So probably next year there'll be another album, I'm hoping.
Wow. I love that prolific, man. And how about with you, Ned? Have you been recording at all during the downtime?
Yeah, so I play, again, in that family of bands. There's a band called Mexican Gunfight, which is a lot of the same people from the Renegade Saints and the same family. And we've got an album out, and there's going to be, when we're working on new material right now, one of those things that we had talked about while you were frozen is just how we're trading files now, building demos, going through that whole process to come out with a new record, but just in this sort of unconventional COVID way, Yeah. So we're really excited about that. It's a really, really fun process. I'll record, there'll be a scratch, I'll lay down the drums, and we'll continue to build up the tracks, and then we'll kind of go back and edit. And so I'm really excited for all the new material, probably from a lot of bands and a lot of musicians who are all cooped up, writing and doing stuff. And so hopefully in 2021, we'll see a glut of great music.
God, I'm so glad to hear you doing that. First of all, let me say, I just realized who the chatter is in the chat group with the name "Look What We Found." That's Larry Toering. He is the Deep Purple historian of all people. So yeah, he said, I just come here for the Purple talk. Nice to see that. But you know what? Last week was the first time I played drums since February. I couldn't do it. I just need to be on stage. I was in a funk, and thank goodness one of the buddies who was chatting here, Mike Skill from the Romantics, had me go in the studio and do some stuff for a benefit in Detroit for a St. Francis organization that was helping homeless in Detroit. So it got me out of my funk. It was so good to play drums again, and with a really beautiful human. That's the thing. I didn't want to play by myself. I want to play with other humans, right? And I know that you guys can relate. It was obvious to me when I watched your gig, Paul, the other night, that you guys were smiling at each other. There were a lot of laughs, you brought a lot of good energy, and the people that were watching it were blessed to have you. So kudos to Bobby Pilata for putting that together and showcasing with you guys too.
He's a good guy.
We're very fortunate to have people in the community that are so involved in music this way. Both of you guys, Ned, I know that I think you're kind of an unsung hero in a lot of ways. I know that you've brought a lot of great opportunities for people to see music that they never would have known that you were the guy behind it, So I want to make sure that we tip a glass to Ned Failing for being that guy.
Thanks. Yeah, some of the times I've been following in your footsteps, Kevin. So you've been a trailblazer there.
Well, we've been blessed to play with some really remarkable people together, buddy. We have, man. The three of us here, it's great to see these smiles, and really nice to see a bunch of you guys here chatting and watching the show. I'll make sure that I archive this. I got to go back and watch what I missed from the interview so I can get some of these links there. But if you guys are interested, make sure you go to paullesinski.com. Check out Paul's stuff. He's got all of his socials there. I know, Ned, I follow you all the time on Instagram. What's the best way besides going to revolutionhall.com to get a hold of you?
Well, Mexican Gunfight is mexicangunfight.com is the URL. But yeah, basically, maybe check the Facebook page because I'm in so many different projects.
Yeah, you are.
I just promote through my own channel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Man, I again thank you guys so much. Not only for you guys here in the guest as my guests, but also for these of you watching and putting up with the internet snafu that I had. If you guys are able to, please jump in Thursday night, hang out with Dave Aberzies and I.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Dave, there's a great story with Dave and I. Ned, you and I you'll appreciate some history. But I was working one show with Dave back in 1991, right when the band broke in Montana, and it's one of the things that led me out here from Montana to the area in the Northwest. And I'm so grateful to get to reconnect with him. He's got this new record that he's got coming out will blow your mind too. Zootopia, his band is awesome. So Thursday night, Dave Aberzies, 9:00 Pacific, and then Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific, I believe, is Wang Chung. We'll do a live
Nice.
catch up with Wang Chung. So those guys are phenomenal too. So I'm blessed to have a bunch of great people this week. And
Hey,
again,
do you have 60 seconds for a Dave story?
yeah, let's hear it.
So when Ned and I were in the Strangers, we were touring throughout the grunge period. Although that wasn't how we classified ourselves. We were probably more of a jam band. And Pearl Jam was doing those things, like they had just put that 10 out, and they were doing those things where they would just show up and play at a club unannounced.
Oh yeah.
And the Strangers were on the road, and we were playing the filling station in Bozeman, Montana, and we were loading in and all this, and somebody came up and told one of us that possibly Pearl Jam was going to show up and play that night, and we would not be able to play. So the whole time we're just like, holy crap, like, is Pearl Jam going to show up? And they didn't show up. But who did show up was a whole bunch of people expecting maybe to see Pearl Jam show up. So we had a full house. I remember people sitting on the speaker cabinets. I mean, it was such a fun gig. I don't know, Ned, if you remember that gig or not.
I remember it well. I just remember being very nervous because we had some big shoes to fill all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know why they weren't there?
Yeah, the first thing that our singer Bart said was, well, we're not Pearl Jam.
Yeah,
We're
right.
Strangers.
Wait, do you know why they weren't there, Kevin?
Yes.
Why?
Because I was hanging with them after the show. That was the show that I worked at the filling state at the fairgrounds in Bozeman, Montana. The night that you guys played the filling station, I was working with them at the fairgrounds.
Oh,
So in fact, when I do the archive of this, I'll post the poster from that night's show.
Oh man.
So yeah, this is crazy. The bass player that I moved out here with booked that show at the fairgrounds, and so Jeff Ament, their bass player, was from Big Sandy, Montana.
right.
We were all in art classes together with them at Montana State, and so we booked Pearl Jam, and they had been Mookie Blaylock when the band was first booked there. And then over time, as the band got signed and they changed the name, the band started to blow up, but they were still not at that huge point yet. So that was the first night that I actually worked with and hung with Dave Aberzies. So that's just what a small world that it was at the Filler.
Man.
That's where I'm from, is in Bozeman. I played 1 million gigs at the Filler, and I can't believe that I missed you guys that night. Aberzies and I stayed back at the fairgrounds. He charted out all these parts to the songs because I was working with them that night, and I could not believe how gracious and humble the dude was. And so from that point forward, invited my fiance and I out to go stay with them in Seattle for a week, and we drove down to Boulder to go see them that next year as well. All of those stories we'll talk about on Thursday night's episode. So
I got to meet Dave once, and he was the nicest guy, so charming, and really just sat locked in. He was a real person. He was just a killer guy.
Really like you, man. I mean, I think when you find somebody like that in the industry that you can just resonate with, it really, as a young drummer, I know for me, it changed my life. It really did. It made me realize that you could attain all those things that you really wanted to go after without having to succumb to just being, the rock star dickhead, right? So
Yep.
I'm so excited to be back in touch with him. The last few years, it was tough for him, obviously, that the band let him go, and even tougher that they finally were inducted in the Hall of Fame, and Dave was not recognized at that point. And so it was a pretty vocal point, for him to just say, I hold no grudges against the band, but he was such a formative part of that band to really make their mark that, but we all know that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is kind of ridiculous when it comes to recognizing the value and worth of bands. But he has overcome adversity. He's real happy right now. Got a great record coming out. Still plays his ass off. He sends me little Instagram clips all the time, and I'm just blown away how the guy hasn't lost any power or ingenuity, so it's fun. So if you get a chance, come hang out with us on Thursday.
All right, we'll be there.
And I love that you guys were at the Filler that night. That's beautiful. And when you talk to Bart Ferguson, tell him I love that guy. So thank you guys again. Thanks to everybody for watching. Have a beautiful afternoon. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin. And I'll make sure I archive their links on the pages as well. Have a great day, gentlemen. Let's get through COVID. All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.